Right, okay, now, got sort of 45 minutes. We'll have some questions afterwards. No answers, but you can just ask the questions anyway, do what you like. Year of the Dog. I got hit by my daughter for coming up with this. She implied it was hers. It was nothing to do with her at all. Year of the Dog, the Chinese, the thing they have for their astrology. Complete rubbish the entire time, of course, because all my Chinese relations get terribly excited about it and say, yes, this is it, you know, it's the Year of the Dog, it's really very good. They've never yet come up with a year and saying it's dreadful. But then again, the Chinese get it right. Because there's one word that actually runs an economy. Confidence. Confidence. If you don't have any confidence, nothing happens. There is therefore one person in this country you can blame for any lack of confidence. Hugh Edwards. You go home every night and you switch on the television and you listen to a depressed Welshman telling you the news. You do it again the following. After a month of it, you are depressed. He hasn't got a clue what he's reading. He just reads off an autocue. But nonetheless, it has that impact, has that effect. So this is what we actually need to be clear of, to actually really work out what is going on. What is this Year of the Dog going to be like? Is it actually going to be a fantastic, great success, or is it going to be a right old pooch? So we'll have to go and see. What is interesting, though, when you actually cast back, is actually what the global economy has been doing, and it's significantly different from what the media keeps on telling you. Trump goes on about fake news the entire time. It's not so much fake news, it's just actually the news that we're all getting, because we all self-select our own news these days to reinforce our own views and opinions, rather than necessarily actually having a broader view of what's going on. When Trump first came to power, one of his first statements was, the US economic figures are terrible, unemployment in a terrible state. He must have had the graph the wrong way up. US unemployment is virtually nil. Not only that, actually there are more people being employed in America than ever before. More people employed that they didn't even know existed. So it's really rather odd. So, and also in the UK, we've never had so many people employed in this country before. It is really quite astonishing. All the polls tell us actually what's going on. Of course, actually now the polls are going home, so it's going to change. So actually, it's going to be interesting. Even the green line, that's the Eurozone. Seen some improvement there. A couple of Greek blokes got a job around the corner. And you can see some improvement. But you can see it improving. In Ireland, you can see it improving. You know it's improving in Ireland because they all come back. Now, as soon as the Irish economy disappears down the Swanee, everybody leaves. There isn't a tree in the world that hasn't got I Love Paddy scratched on the side of it. Then the economy picks up, they all come back again. That's fine, they're all back. So people are starting talking about the tiger economy again. A bit more difficult if you're Spanish or Italian, of course, because the world doesn't need that many waiters, so you can't really say to go, so it's a bit more difficult. Let's deal with the Eurozone. If you're a loyal reader of the Daily Mail, then, of course, you regard this as a creature of Beelzebub. There is nothing good about it at all, is there? It's obviously patently evil. And when you actually look at the euro itself, well, the first question we should ask, what is the future of the euro? Belgium, last year, issued a 100-year bond. Belgium's only been around for 200 years. A 100-year bond in euros. Is the euro going to be around in 100 years? It is really quite astonishing. And also the rates of some of these. Portuguese debt is now, you pay less for Portuguese debt than you do for American debt. And Portugal is a perfectly reasonable economy. It's not very strong, but hardly one to compete with America. And yet its debt is now so cheap. There are some very strange figures going on. So when you look at the euro, is it actually doomed? Well, that would be unfair. Remember, it did get rid of the world's most useless currency, the Belgian franc. By the time you'd actually worked out what it was, you're in Holland. A complete waste of time. There is one word that sums up Belgium. Why? It serves no purpose whatsoever. Anyway, so the whole point with this is actually that the euro itself, is it going to survive as a currency? The answer is no, it won't. It will fail. And it will fail for one sensible reason. To run a single currency, you need to be able to have the disciplines of actually making sure free movement of capital. Disciplines to actually make sure that banks have the same regulatory structure. Disciplines to make sure all the economies have the same fiscal tax system. Not to say the same taxes, but the same fiscal policies. The same monetary system, monetary policy. That does not exist throughout this entire Eurozone. And until it does, it will end up actually just stretching and pulling itself apart. You want an example of this? Go back to when Scotland was voting for its independence. And the message came down to the Bank of England. Can Scotland, as an independent nation, stay within sterling, or does it have to revert to the tradable goat? And the message came back from George Clooney, whoever runs the Bank of England, and said, it's the goat. Why? Because you can't have a separate nation running its own policy inside your currency. Otherwise, you'll end up with Greece, which is why Edinburgh's called the Athens of the North. So this is the issue that you're trying to manage. So unless they reform it, it will fail. So what happens after the divorce? It's all down to this issue of confidence, isn't it? This amount of confidence we have to have. Confidence in terms of consumer spending, that's the bit we'll all know about. And how much weakness there is there? Corporate investing. This is important for us all here. And all, as you know, a lot of corporates will be saying, I'll be investing for a few months hence, but any time after April Fool's Day next year, how appropriate, I'm not going to invest until you can tell me quite clearly what's going to happen. If you can't tell me, I'm off somewhere else. And you can see in the city at the moment, the amount of marketing that's going on from all the various areas like Paris and Frankfurt and Berlin, and of course Dublin. Dublin's new nickname is Canary Dwarf. So anyway, so they get very upset when you tell them that. But also overseas investment. 4 years ago, we were the third largest recipient of inward investment. Right? First it was America, then China, and then it was Britain. Over £1 trillion coming in, going into, well, actually quite a lot going into manufacturing, into London. No, actually it's spread throughout the UK, focused a lot on the southeast, obviously. But that started to change. Now we've dropped way down. We've still got money coming in, but that's mostly from the Indians and Chinese who actually see assets, solid assets, they can buy quite cheaply. Not so much in terms of manufacturing. So it's a different style. And this is why it's important. We need to make sure we exude confidence that actually we're in control of our economy and we can develop things. But as I know from 2 American companies last year who said, I'm not investing in Britain because you can't tell me where you're going, so I'm going to invest in Britain Light. What's Britain Light? Little Britain I've heard of, but I'm not going to invest in that. But how about Britain? What do we invest in? They mean Ireland. That's their version of it. So, we have lost that out on that, which is really rather sad indeed. And this phrase, kindness of strangers, from Mr. Carney at the Bank of England. And what he means is people buying our gilts, buying our debt. They trust us because we've never defaulted on our debt. One of the very few large nations that hasn't defaulted on its debt, but they're not going to do it out of charity, so we have to pay more, hence those interest rates, the amount of interest we paid. So all of that means we need to rebuild that confidence. So here is the opportunity, if we're going to go through this madness, and we are going to go through, see, reform of taxation. We've got one of the most complicated tax systems in the world. Tolley's Tax Guide, which is the book that accountants take to bed for some form of sexual cover. And it was 7,500 pages in the year 2000. It's now 15,000 pages. And the Office of Tax Simplification have added 2,000 pages. You're supposed to take them away, not add to them. Oh, well. Stamp duty, I think I banged on about stamp duty. What is the point of stamp duty? It was started by a rather dodgy Dutch king who came over to be king over here. So he brought it in to pay for his war against the French. We're currently not at war against the French for the moment. So we can sort of get rid of it. Stamp duty stops people spending money. When you move house, the kitchen goes, the bathroom goes, you send in the polls. So therefore, the government actually earn more money out of VAT than it will out of stamp duty. And page 1 of any economics book is velocity of money through the economy, not stopping it. Well, it earns a lot of money for the government. No, it doesn't. Take off the oligarchy, the oligarchs in London, and it's down to about 4 or 5 billion. And you saw how much income we had. It's tiny, really tiny. And then capital investing, capital raising. This is where, again, the ability to get more capital into businesses on a regional basis. The whole group of us here come from throughout the United Kingdom. Where were the original investment exchanges? There were over 45 stock exchanges throughout Britain after the war. Most of them were useless. There were 7 that were quite good. We need to have more of that coming in so people can raise local money for local businesses and to be able to provide more capital coming in so it won't be coming from the banks. So whether you're pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit, should actually start thinking about more things we can try and do because there's no shortage of money. It's the plumbing and the funneling of that money that's so important. So overall, Eurozone, further growth. Yes, it's going to be seeing it, but it's starting to slow a bit. China goes through a change of life. We sit there with our Brexit nerves, and the US trumped up. It's not going to be stopping anytime soon, but it's changing shape. And then actually the emerging and developing markets continuing to grow. That's not such a bad backdrop overall. Remember, this is the most important relationship. They can't do without each other. China, most of the time, has the world's largest holding of US debt, between them and the Japanese. And the largest trading partner for China is America. So that combination is vital. That's what we need to be able to have. And so long as Trump doesn't upset that, anything could happen. Who knows? So the message is this. Ignore Hugh Edwards. Don't actually panic as to what's actually going on, but think very carefully about what the next stage is going to be. We are going to be going into a period where it's going to be slow, but unlikely to be stopping. Can't see that occurring, but it's a lower, slower period you'll be seeing after that. But now, remember, the rules have changed for not only your clients, but also for you as well. All the rules in terms of not personal finance, but business finance, and in terms of investment. And a lot of that responsibility is now being pushed down to us to try and work out what to do and spend more time working out trying to what happens next. So we've got to rebuild investment confidence on the basis of realistic confidence, not stupid confidence. But this, by the way, is a real picture, not a made-up one. So actually, the point of actually saying that actually our economy is still doing better, but there are some big clouds we have to try and manage to be able to avoid some of those storms, or at least manage our way through those storms. And Brexit is not going to be an easy issue. But it does not mean that the economy stops. But be prepared for that period when it's going to be slower, it will be lower, but it ain't going to be stopping anytime soon.